Ladies, puberty, PMT, pregnancy, the menopause. Yes, your hormones have been taking you for a ride for years. Hot flushes on the bus, menopausal meltdowns in the office, whatever those hormones have made you do, Jenny Smith and Kate Bauss are here to lend a sympathetic ear. Why not write in and share your hormonal hell with the girls? Don't worry, they've heard it all before. It's time to put those hormones in the firing line. This is Dear Hormones. Welcome to your safe space, ladies.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of Dear Hormones. Hi, Kate.
Hello, Jenny.
So we're really excited because we've got a special guest and we're going to dedicate this entire episode to this special guest because we had such a good chat with her, didn't we, that we thought it deserved its own episode.
We did, and she's very special as well.
So our guest today is Nicola Thorp. She's an actress. She used to be in Coronation Street. She is also a TV presenter. She does quite a lot at the moment on This Morning. But she's also a columnist, so she writes for the Metro. She's also an equality campaigner. She's just basically, what I'm saying is she's bloody amazing. She's really young, you know, she's only in her 30s, but the stuff that she's done, in fact, I'm going to ask you all now, if you go and Google her, Google Nicola Thorp heels, and you'll see this amazing story of when Nicola was told to wear high heels for a job. I think she was on reception and she flatly refused. You know, she was like, well, I don't have to wear high heels, you know, to be in this job. And basically she got this whole thing heard in Parliament, and the company in the end scrapped that rule that the receptionist had to wear high heels. She's just amazing. And she's done all that, you know, at such a young age.
I remember that happening. I remember reading about that, and it was quite a long time ago. It was not that recently. So she would have been in her 20s at the time.
What a woman. So I met her when I did my lockdown project, when I photographed people standing at their front doors. And Nicola, very excitingly, lives on a boat. She said that I could take her photograph at the boat, and that's the first time we met. And I just absolutely love her. And then I met her again recently where we were having a chat about this podcast and about hormones. And she said, oh my God, have I got stories for you? Because she also suffers, obviously she's too young for the menopause, she suffers from periods and PMT, all that kind of stuff. So she said that she'd come on the podcast.
And she's so lovely to talk to. I know she's not a friend and I need to understand that, but I felt as though I felt as though I wanted to be her friend.
Guess what, guys? There was another tech issue. I think this was actually on Nicola's side, wasn't it? So it wasn't us this time, although I think we had some tech issues. We had to get a man in to sort that one out, which was annoying. But Kate, talking about tech issues, we've just had a minor one, haven't we, just now? Do you want to tell everybody what's happened?
My headphones, well, not my headphones, actually, my daughter's headphones. I've just broken them entirely. So apologies to my darling daughter.
So Kate's now wearing headphones with one of them dangling off her ear.
So if my sound is not as it should be, you know why. Is it a good look for me, Jenny? How do I look?
It looks really good, Kate. I mean, it's a new trend, just hanging off like that. It's really lovely. And also what I really like is how you got your microphone set up this week, whereby I can only just see one eye.
That's my good eye.
Anyway, enough of us, Kate. Shall we just play out our lovely interview that we did with Nicola?
Let's do that.
Please welcome actress, TV presenter, columnist and equality campaigner, Nicola Thorp.
Oh my
Hello.
God, I'm blushing. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nicola, for coming on our little podcast. We can't quite believe it.
It's not your little podcast. I love your big podcast so much.
Oh.
I am a fan, a big fan.
Well, we're massively impressed. We don't normally get to speak to actual bona fide celebrities, so, you know. So Nicola and I, Kate, first met when I did my front door photo project, and I photographed Nicola on her boat. But you're not on your boat today, Nicola?
I'm not on the boat because boat life means terrible internet connection. And I wanted to make sure you could hear me. So I've spent the day at my boyfriend's today. So he's a reliable man and he has reliable Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and actually we have to confess, don't we, that we've had a bit of a tech issue and we've had to call the men in. We had to call the man in.
I'm so annoyed. Wait, I can swear, can't I?
You can.
Yeah, I was so pissed off in front of Kate and Jenny because I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to ask a boy to come and fix my technical issues. I'm raging.
It doesn't Doesn't fit the brand, does it?
No, not at all. Not at all. But behind closed doors, I need all of the help I can get from men, truly.
So Nicola and I met each other again quite recently, and we started talking about this podcast and talking about hormones and talking about the rage and all sorts of things. And Nicola said to me, "Oh my God, I've got so many stories like that for you." Yeah. And I was like, "Please come on the podcast and tell us about them." So, do you want to just sort of talk to us in general about what your hormones have been like over the years?
So what I find fascinating was talking to you about, and talking to lots of women actually about HRT and various different hormonal impacts that it has on women. My mum had a hysterectomy quite young. It's kind of after she'd had my brother, because she was having really bad difficulty. So it didn't go through like a traditional menopause. So I was always fascinated by it, because I also didn't understand what happened when she'd had her uterus removed. I thought there was just a gaping hole in her, there's like a cavernous hole inside her abdomen. So it always really interested me, and I would talk a lot to my friends, because I went on the pill when I was like 13. So it wasn't because I was having sex, it was just because I had really heavy periods. And my relationship with the pill has been so fraught, because sometimes I love it, because I don't have to think about, when I started having sex, I don't have to think about various things. You can control when you have your period. This is magical. But then I'd also start noticing changes in my mood, in my rage, as you ladies talk about a lot, in my self-esteem. And I wouldn't know. And this is the thing with hormones, right? You don't know if it's them, or if it is you, or the situation, or it's the circumstances around you. And that's what I find really, really tricky. So basically my entire life, since the age of 13, and to be fair, your body is raging with hormones as a teenager anyway, right? So you're like, well, what the fuck is it? Do I eliminate the possibility of it being the pill? Well, yeah, I can do that. But then I'm also worried about, okay, what if condoms don't work? And then I've got to go on the morning after pill, which I've done. I've had a horrible relationship with that as well, when I've used it as as an emergency contraceptive. And it's made me feel shite for 6 weeks afterwards. So wow. Yeah, I've got a real love-hate relationship with hormones.
Yeah, you say that you went on the pill at the age of 13. That's really young. So what were your symptoms then as a 13-year-old that prompted you to take the pill?
Really young. So super heavy periods. We're talking, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's such bullshit when male doctors in particular say, oh, every period is only a teaspoon of blood. I'm like,
yeah.
No, it's not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I do a teaspoon in an hour. So I was having really heavy periods. I was in so much pain. One day I was in so much pain that my mum picked me up from school. Actually, I fainted in a biology class. Mum picked me up from school, and I was in so much pain I kicked her glove box and broke it.
Oh.
So she's like,
oh my God.
Yeah. I was like, just make this stop. So went to the doctor. He prescribed me the pill to kind of lessen my symptoms, I guess. And it did. It worked. But then I remember, and this is kind of my first hormone story, was going to the doctor at 17 because, do you know what? The concept of suicide had never even really been brought to my attention. It wasn't something that was really spoken about in soaps at the time. Nowadays we talk about it all the time, which is a really good thing, I think. But I was maybe I wasn't even 17, maybe I was 15, 16. And I'd already come up with the concept of suicide in my own head without external, without having watched something on TV with somebody feeling suicidal and me identifying with that. I'd just come up with it. And I was like, okay, I'm having all these feelings about ending my life and I don't know why. And I went to the doctor, and he was the same doctor I had since I was born. And he was like, yep, that'll be the pill. We'll just change one to a different brand.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, and I feel like that's such a common experience for so many women is, you have this issue, they go, yeah, it's the pill, we'll try something else. Instead of going, but to be fair, he asked me about what was going on in my life, and I had the picture-perfect childhood. And I was a straight A student, and that almost made it a little bit worse in my head because I was like, well, I've got no complaints, but I want to kill myself.
Nicola, I didn't realise this.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was horrible, but it wasn't like a deep thing. It wasn't, like, I'm a soul searchy thing. It was literally just like a chemical thing. What's just stuck with me was that thing of, instead of going, okay, here's a happy, healthy child who, the doctor going, happy, healthy child I've known since childhood. And this one thing has changed over the past few years for her. Instead of saying, we'll take you off it, it was, we'll just switch brands.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a common experience for a lot of women that I speak to about this. I've written many columns about my experience of periods and the pill. But I also don't mean to bash the pill, because to do that is to kind of bash science. And more recently, I think people look for conspiracies in everything. We're talking about the anti-vax movement and stuff like that. And I'd hate to be somebody who thinks that there's a conspiracy surrounding contraception. But what I would say, like, that is a fact, is that nowhere near enough research has been done in the realm of women's health. So whether that's a conspiracy or not, I don't know. It's just a fact that we don't know nearly enough as we should about the effects of hormones, about the effects of the contraceptive pill, etc. Because, I'm on it again. And I'm 33 now. So that's like 20 years later. I had some time off it and I'm fine, I think. But, I still have those days where I'm like, oh, I feel shit. Is it the pill? Or is it something else? Yeah.
I find that's really quite scary, Nicola. I don't think I've ever heard of anything like that before, with the pill being able to cause that kind of feeling.
Oh my God. So many of my friends, we would all talk about it. So this is friends at various different stages of adulthood, where I'd be like, do you get really depressed on the pill? They were like, yeah. Oh my God, what were you on? Microgynon. It was like, Microgynon it was like a little yellow pill. And
I've been on that as well.
Yeah. Have you? Did you have a good one? A good experience? Because it doesn't affect everyone the same. This is the thing.
Yeah. I think for me it was fine. I don't remember it particularly affecting me adversely. But yeah, I'm so sorry as well to hear that you had that experience.
There's a brilliant Instagram page called Get the Lowdown. It's a website, and they interview women who've been on various different forms of contraception, and they talk about, because there's no centralised database except this woman who's just set up this website to talk about the side effects of the pill. And it was so reassuring to see all these other women be like, oh, yeah, I started taking the pill and it made me, suicidal.
Because I don't remember as well, they have those massive long leaflets inside the contraceptive pill packs, and in the microgynon one, big long list. I do remember that, but I don't remember it stating that sort of thing. It was all about sort of pains in your legs and things like that.
And like
not
deep vein
about
thrombosis.
Yeah.
So the one I'm on now, the instruction manual, it does say can lead to depressive episodes, mood swings, suicidal thoughts. And again, I'm now in my 30s and I'm reading that. I only went back on it kind of beginning of this year. And I'm reading the leaflet going, oh, why am I here again?
Oh, yeah.
But actually I've found it to be okay. And I told my partner, like, can you just keep an eye on me? And like, just tell me if you feel like, maybe I'm not as happy as I was before. But then again, we're humans. That changes all the time, doesn't it? It's hard to pin down.
Of course. But I'm kind of finding it quite shocking that because that's so serious, what you've just been talking about, and the fact that the doctor didn't actually address that with you more seriously.
Yeah.
Like when you go back and say that, oh, we'll just change the pill, and not actually
let's talk about
what is happening to you. That is absolutely shocking, Nicola.
Oh, but thank you for kind of sharing that rage and passion about it. Because it's terrifying, and I do worry a lot of the time that there's such a trend in medicine, I think, for prescribing the pill. Again, I don't mean to be pill bashing, because it can work for people very, very well, and ultimately it gives women freedom, etc. But there is a trend in just giving women the pill when there's anything period related that could actually mask further problems. So there's a friend of mine who had got severe endometriosis, but kept going back to the doctor, and they were like, we'll just change your pill, we'll just change your pill, we'll change your pill, rather than going, okay, why is this patient in so much pain. We need to investigate why, rather than just putting another sticking plaster on top of it.
I think that's happened. I don't think there's enough that's been done about endometriosis. My sister had endometriosis, which led to fertility issues, and I was investigated for it and they never found it. It's a really tricky condition because you can have endometriosis in a really, really tiny way, but it have a massive impact on you. And not enough is done about that either.
No, and then HRT and the menopause, like, Christ, how am I 33 and I'm really only now finding out about the menopause through older friends who are going through it? Yeah. Was never taught about it at school.
I mean, I feel as though I've only just started finding out about it since doing this podcast. So
wow, yeah.
And I'm a lot older than you, Nicola.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, well, actually, Kate had a bit of an episode the other day that we talked about on the podcast. I'm not sure if this episode's been out yet, but whereby Kate, for the first time, sort of felt that rage, because previously on the podcast she's talked about, I've never had that, when I'm going on about all the hideous rage I've experienced. And she had it for the first time the other day, and she said had it not been for this podcast, she wouldn't have understood where that rage had come from, and she wouldn't have stopped herself from it escalating had it not been for the fact for us talking about it. Have you had any concept of the menopause at all and what the symptoms might be?
No.
Is there anything?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like I said, I probably would have learnt more had my mum gone through it. But because, she had a hysterectomy. I guess was she on HRT? I don't even know.
Well, with hysterectomies, you're forced into a medical induced menopause.
Right.
So they should have, I presume, they would have put her immediately on HRT, which would stop all the hot flushes and all the things that would immediately have come upon her.
Yeah, I don't know what. I'm guessing she must do. Again, me and my mum have got such an open relationship. We chat about everything, but this has kind of just never come up. I mean, it would make sense. She did seem to go a bit mental for a couple of years. She won't mind me saying that. we all refer to it.
Some stories there for us, Nicola.
Yeah, we're like, do you remember the time we were talking to my brother? We're like, do you remember the time my mum went a little bit bonkers? It's like, yeah, what was that about? I'm like, don't know. But it would make sense that it was possibly the menopause.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know anything. I don't know anything, or certainly didn't. I've done my own research into things now. I think there's brilliant documentaries out. Davina McCall's really flying the flag for menopause awareness and that kind of thing. But I've certainly never been told by an educational figure or by a medical professional, like personally. It's all through the telly, and it really does my head in that. My generation were told, TV's going to rot your brain. I've learned everything I know about this world through watching TV, watching documentaries.
It's a bit of a worry, isn't it? You think 50% of the population are going to be menopausal one day. Yeah. And, and it can be debilitating. I mean, there was a story in the newspaper this week, I don't know if you saw it, about a lady who took her own life this year during lockdown. And her husband has watched a news article recently about the menopause, and he suddenly realised that actually the symptoms of the menopause was everything his wife was experiencing, but neither of them recognise it or knew about it. It's not just the women that need to know about it. Everyone needs to know about it. It can affect everybody, as PMT does as well. There's not enough is being done about that either.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I read actually when you mentioned earlier on about kicking the glove compartment in your car. I read an article that you'd written, Nicola.
Oh, did you?
I did, yes. And it was about, so this was obviously you when you were 13, but it was about this 13-year-old very recently, a month ago or so, who the school had refused to give her an authorised absence, despite the fact that she was suffering from utterly debilitating period pains and really couldn't be in school. But school said that was not a valid reason to be absent.
They gave her an unauthorised absence mark. And her dad, who's an absolute boss, a guy called Marcus Allen, he set up a petition to make period pain a recognised form of absence from school. Because he said, quite rightly, if I just said my daughter had had a migraine, something that affects men and women, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So an amazing male ally. He should be celebrated for what he has done. And for me, I would always use my periods as an excuse when I wasn't on them. And then when I was on my period, I would carry so much shame that I wouldn't admit to it. It was so weird. Like if there was a swimming gala, I think they did, awful, but I'd be like, I'm on my period. She's like, you're 10 years old. I'm like, I know. I'm still on my period. To be fair, I started my period at 11. But
Yeah, so did I, Nicola.
Did you? And then
So young.
it's so young.
Yeah, I mean, I just turned 11. I was about 2 weeks into turning 11.
Same.
I mean, it was so scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was really freaked out by it.
And none of your friends presumably were in the same situation. You would have been
No.
the first of your friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the first of my friends. Oh no, I think a girl called Sophie, I think she told everyone she'd started her period, but she said that in order to start your period, you had to have sex. And so I was terrified that when I started my period, I was like, well, that must mean I'm pregnant. And I remember going to my mum, and there was a big storyline in Coronation Street at the time about Sarah Lou. Do you remember, like, Sarah Louise?
Yes,
like,
I remember the character, yeah.
Teenage pregnancy.
Yeah.
So I'd seen that on the TV, and I was like, oh, Mum. So I go into the lounge, and I'm like, Mum, I need to talk to you. I'm pregnant. She's like, what? I was 11.
Oh, bless you.
Your mum must have absolutely freaked out by that.
Oh God, she was having palpitations. She turned off the TV. She's like, what? It's like, I'm pregnant. She's like, what's happened? I was like, well, I've come on my period. She's like, okay, those two things don't seem to go hand in hand. And I told her, and then she was so like happy, and that freaked me out because I was like, you know, because obviously as a mum, she's like, oh, my daughter's had a period. And I was so like, do not tell anyone. Do not tell anyone. This has got to be a big secret. And she told her friend, Nikki, from down the road. And I flipped out. I was like, this was supposed to be our little secret, blah, blah, blah. And I still bring it up nowadays. I'm like, whenever I ask my mum to keep a little porky pie, I'm like, you're not going to tell everyone like you told Nikki that I'd started my period, are you?
But even though your mum, you know, told Nikki, despite that, the fact that you had a close enough relationship with her that you were able to go and talk to her and to talk about your fears of being pregnant. Imagine, because there are a lot of girls out there who don't have that sort of relationship with their parents, and in that same situation, how frightening when you don't know who to go and talk to. So
scary, particularly when teachers, I'm guessing, I mean, there are brilliant teachers out there, and we definitely had some amazing ones at our school who would talk about this kind of thing, but if that isn't an option for people, like Christ, I remember like my mum taught me put my first tampon in for me, and I don't mind talking about it because I think that's the case for a lot of my friends actually.
Yeah.
Because I had so much shame about my vagina, my vulva. I didn't know what was going on down there, and I remember I was going on holiday like with a friend's family, and I knew I was going to be on my period, and there would be swimming and all of this horribleness. My mum was like shouting instructions through the door, like, just put your leg up here and do this and do that. And I just burst into tears and was like, will you just do it? Just show me. I was just loving like hysterical, like weird moment between me and my mum. And she's like, oh, I don't want to really do this, but I guess
feels a bit wrong.
Yeah, it feels really wrong, but there you go. That's how you do it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, but what a lovely mummy.
She's amazing. Big shout out to Jan.
Big
God bless her. She was like eyes closed, just sort of going, I think it's like, but these are the moments.
I think I've got it in the right place.
I think it's in the right. Yeah, God knows, she could have not. But that was my first like tampon. Like that was my first experience with it. I don't know how other women figure it out because
it took me a very long time to figure it out.
Yeah, I needed actual adult supervision in order to sort mine out. But we're just supposed to guess these things, right?
I remember I started using Tampax quite early on because do you remember, Nicola, how chunky those bloody pads were? You're younger than us, but I mean, they were particularly big back in the 80s. And then we used to have gym lessons in leotards.
Yeah.
Well, I did, whilst I had a huge, enormous pad in my pants. So I was actually quite keen to get onto Tampax as soon as I could.
They were enormous. So, I mean, the reason I got onto Tampax, obviously, it was because I was going on this holiday, but I used to play a lot of hockey. And it would be, I'm from the north, so it was obviously pissing it down every Saturday afternoon. I finished a hockey match when I was on my period, soaked, and I looked down at my white socks and they were pink. And I was like, that's weird. It wasn't it wasn't like blood red, it was pink. And I was like, what's gone on here? What had happened? It had been raining so hard that my sanitary towel had filled up to its maximum capacity. You know, like they show you on the adverts, you're like, there's no way it can go that thick. And it did. And then everything else just started like, all of the weird pinky blue gel and whatnot. I was like dripping down my legs and just looking down going, it sucks to be a woman, doesn't it? So obviously I'm like, no, I don't know how I don't care how weird it is. Show me how to do this thing.
Yeah, you can't have that again.
No.
Do you know, so it actually reached your socks, Nicola? It actually reached your socks.
Oh, yeah. Reached my socks. My socks were pink. I came home, I was like, what the bloody hell's happened to your socks? I'm like, well, it's my period. She's like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was
I can't believe that it had been raining so hard that it actually had filled up the tank, the pad.
It filled up my pad. It rained so hard. My pad got full. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Oh, Nicola. So you talked about, you know, heavy periods and things. What are things like these days? And what about your PMT these days? I mean, is there anything to tell us there?
Yeah, well, I've got two stories. One that's I'm going to call pathetic, and one that's filled with rage. So shall I go for rage? This is actually not a recent one. It is from 10 years ago because, like I said, I've been on and off the pill whole life. But this was, as I think a lot of women do, you go on the pill when you're in a relationship because it gets to that point where you're like, okay, we're using condoms, we're going to stop using condoms. The pill is the answer. And I'd gone on the pill with this boyfriend. We lived together. We'd been together for a while. And I just started getting really, really bad PMT. And I would be in a right mood. Just anything would set me off. And he, you know, would sit down and kind of say, like, I love you. He was very lovely. I can't fault him. He was like, I love you, but I really don't know sometimes how to deal with this, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, this is before I'd even thought of like therapy or even coming off the pill. I was like, I'm going to try really, really hard to just try and manage it, you know, go for runs, all the things that you do to try and maintain the rage. Anyway, I'd been doing really, really well. I come home on bonfire night and it was his job to make the bonfire. And I get up the driveway and I can smell the smoke and I'm like, oh, I love him so much. He's put this gorgeous bonfire on, blah, blah, blah. Open the gate to the garden, stand there in the back and he's there. He's like, hey, babe. And I'm like, hi. And we stand sort of arm in arm looking at the bonfire. I'm like, oh my God, it looks amazing. And I'm like, what's that? It's like, what's what? It's like, that piece of wood. It's like, it's just wood. It's like, is that our bedside table?
What?
He was like, yeah. I said, why the fuck have you put our bedside table on the bonfire? I said, well, we had two of them.
What?
So after like weeks of treading on eggshells and like just trying to keep everything down in front of this incredible fire thing that he directed in our garden out of my furniture,
out of your
by the
furniture.
way, but half of it, this guy, I loved him, but he was an idiot. He chopped up our bedside cabinet, which was a lot of money, by the way, and had thrown it onto the bonfire.
This.
So I let rip. I let rip. And all of the things that I'd kept hidden for the previous few weeks of my PMT, I was like, and another thing, and this and that, all over this fire as though my bedside table was just being burnt in the middle of the garden.
I don't blame you, to be honest. I think that you'd have reason to go and grab some of his stuff and throw it on the fire.
Exactly. But he didn't get it. He was like, well, we've got two. Anyway, so that's my rage one.
Sorry, I can't. This story has got too many. Was he all right, this guy?
I don't know. Like, obviously, we didn't stay together. We didn't stay together too long afterwards.
I'm not surprised, Nicola, but who goes...
Thank you.
The focus here for me is not on your rage, actually. The focus is on what he did there.
It is, isn't it, Kate? It's like, he got your bedside table. I cannot tell. I tell you what, I would not be married anymore if I came home to see that.
Can you imagine?
No,
So,
I'd be like, no.
But this is me going... And it's like, I can only describe it as like Ross in Friends, you know, when that guy eats his sandwich. And I was like, my bedside table? And he had chosen the one that was on my side of the bed, which made it sting even more.
Oh, that's wrong.
But it was that thing where I think I'd kind of caged myself in for so long with my PMT and stopped myself expressing the little things. Yeah. And had so much self-blame of like, it's my fault that I'm like this and I need to regulate my period, da-da-da-da-da. And it was, I guess, the most cathartic thing that could have happened was like, I saw this scene and went, I have done absolutely nothing wrong here and I'm well within my right to just, and I did.
Yeah, permission to blow up.
Permission to explode.
More than within your rights.
I love that story, Nicola. I can't believe it.
Thank you. I'm still not over it 10 years on. I wonder how he's doing. But it was just that period of my life where everything was like, PMT was bad.
Yeah. So what sort of little things would be winding you up leading up to the big blow up? What kind of things when you were hormonal would be?
When I was hormonal, it would be things like like inflections at the end of sentences, that really outrageous thing that men do. So like turning something into a question, and I'd be like, was that a question? No, it's just a statement. That would drive me up the wall. So things like just stupid things, not putting things in the right place in the kitchen. He had a big thing about not taking out the bins, which really pissed. I mean, maybe he was just a terrible boyfriend. But
yeah, I'm beginning to think maybe he was.
So things like that. But not even just with a partner. Obviously, partners see us our most we have the most intimate relationship with. But it would be friends and family as well. Oh my God, I flipped at my dad. He told me off for saying the word slut at the dinner table, and I flipped out at him.
How old would you have been? Was this like years ago?
Oh, this was like 6 years ago. Yeah, this wasn't that long ago. But I said slut, and he was like, "You can't use that language." And I was like, "I've been called a slut my entire life. I can use it. You can't." He was like, "Whoa." What's going on with
you? Were there other people at the dinner table?
Yeah,
was this a big family gathering? Or?
Yeah, grandma included. So we're like shouting across the table about like who's allowed to say the word slut and who's not. And I'm obviously claiming, as a woman, I can say it. But and so this conversation, I mean, it wasn't a conversation, it was a raging argument with everybody a little bit like, fuck, we don't know what to do. And I'm literally shouting, I'm like, you can't come, pointing at my mum going, you can call me a slut. You can't call me a slut. You can't use that word. I can call myself a slut. I'm reclaiming the word slut. My brother's like, oh, why did I come home for this family dinner?
Get me out of here.
Get me out. And then I sort of, storm up to my room and my dad's knocking on the door and he's like, did we just have an argument over the word slut?
No.
Yeah, we did. I'm sorry. I think I'm on my period.
Yeah. Oh, at least you're able to sort of own up to that, because that's one of the hardest things when you are going through PMT or the menopausal rage. Owning up to it is like nigh on impossible.
Yeah, horrific.
Until well after the event.
Yeah, and also, oh God, help anyone who suggests it on my behalf. Do you know what I mean? It's like the use of the word, that word. It's like, I can refer to myself using that, but if a man were to say it to me, obviously that's horrific. Similarly, if I say this is a result of my period, my PMT, that's fine. If someone else said, heads would roll.
That is awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
When people say, oh, are you on your period?
Is it because you're on your period?
Fuck off.
Like, you should know the rules by now. Only I can say when I'm on my period.
Have your hormones been getting the better of you? Why not drop us a line and tell us all about it? Email dearhormones@yahoo.com or find us on Instagram @dearhormones.
The older I get, the more I feel like I should have been able to control it. As in, like, the hormonal changes. I should be able to be completely in control of my period pain. Or because as women, even, I've got friends at the moment kind of at that age where people are trying to have babies, and some sadly have had miscarriages, and all that happens is the women are blaming themselves.
Yeah, well, you're blaming yourself there by saying that you feel you should be able to control it. You how can you control it? It's a hormonal thing, and women blaming themselves with
My friend had a birth that was hugely traumatic, and her baby, went through a terrible time. They both did. She was like, I just blame myself. Like, sorry?
No.
But this culture of self-blame, and again, I think it's because...
With women.
If men had periods, if men went through all of this, there would be such a better understanding, and we wouldn't be cast out as witches or bitches or people with, mood disorders. It would just be accepted that, okay, this is what we're dealing with.
Well, I'm sure if the men went through the menopause, you'd probably be able to get HRT over the counter by now.
Oh, God, yeah. They'd be selling it in drinks, in Wetherspoons. Like you can get CBD oil everywhere. You'd be able to get HRT, wherever you like.
Now, you said you had another story. Is that right, Nicola, that you were going to tell us?
This is my pathetic one.
I'm sure you're not going to be pathetic with it. Nicola, we've heard it all. So.
It is pathetic. No, it's a bit soppy and pathetic. But I was on a week ago in a lot of pain and feeling very, very, very sorry for myself. And I was due to come over to boyfriend's house, but was not up to it. So he came over to mine. It's only a short story, but I hope it resonates with your listeners. He was coming over to mine. We're in a very happy long-term relationship, just worth mentioning. Very secure, very stable. But he calls me as he's about to leave his house and he's like, babe, I'm just going to there's like a bag of stuff that you've left here. I'm just going to bring it with me. And I'm like, yeah, no problem, thanks. Hangs up, he gets the tube towards mine. I spend an hour crying, thinking that he's coming over, bringing my bag of stuff because he's going to break up with me.
Nicola.
And he turns up and he's like, hey babe, got your stuff? And I'm like,
You're completely red-eyed. Oh.
Yeah. So he goes into like panic mode and like, no, everything's okay. He was just doing a nice thing. He was basically just returning like some socks and like the odd pair of underwear and a set of hair straighteners that I'd left over at his and actually needed. But the fact that my head was like, I'm going to piece together the worst possible scenario out of this very normal event. And credit to him, because, if I was with somebody who would be like, no, are you mad? Then that just sets you off, right? And that reinforces that negative thinking. But he was like, what can I possibly do to just reassure you that's not the case?
Love him. Yeah, you're right, actually, because that could, if someone else had reacted badly to that could have spiraled you even more, couldn't it?
And I think all the time about people who are stuck in relationships for whatever reason, and maybe it's no particular person's fault, it's just a bad combination. And you add something like PMT or menopausal rage into the mix. And if that partner isn't empathetic and understanding, then it can, I imagine, just turn into something that's insurmountable. Whereas if you had a third party, just go, hey, give her a break.
Yeah. But can you believe really that our hormones are capable of doing something like that? The fact that, you've got absolutely lovely, lovely boyfriend who's just going to bring your stuff over, and you, a very intelligent, normal, sane woman, had immediately decided, because of your hormones, that he's breaking up with you.
I was like, that
was the only logical explanation. Isn't that I find that scary, that our brains are able to go to those places so fast when our hormones are in charge.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. But the thing is as well, I do also have my rational brain operating at the same time. And it's almost like I'm fighting, I was going to say current boyfriend. It sounds like I'm going to try and get
like there's another one. Yeah.
I'm going to call him final boyfriend. So final boyfriend says whenever I have like this kind of thing, and I'm like, and so many of my female friends at this age, most of them have found like their life partner, etc. We always say to each other, I don't know how he puts up with me. And it's such a horrible way of like thinking about it, isn't it? Like we are something to be put up with. But he always says, it's us against it. So don't see it as being like
lovely.
Isn't it?
He's a keeper.
He's the best. And
Kate, he is a keeper, immediate keeper. These two are the cutest couple you've ever seen in your life. They're like made for each other.
He's banging. But and that's what he says. It's like, it's us against it. And that really changed my attitude to not just like PMT stuff, period stuff, mental health stuff, things that are beyond our control, things that are like happening to us. If you can go, okay, this isn't me, it doesn't define me, it's just a part of me that I can deal with, and you don't have to do it alone. You can have that support network around you.
It's a really lovely way of looking at it, actually. That sort of helps me as well, thinking back to the things that I've done. It wasn't ever me, it was it. It was me dealing with it. And actually, I wish I'd had that advice about 3 years ago, Nicola.
It's incredible advice. And he plucked it out of nowhere. I was like, oh, Jesus.
I wondered if we could if we could take what he said there as a bit of a catchphrase for our show, if you would mind, if it could be the Dear Hormones catchphrase, it's us against it.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's it. It's us against it. It's us against the hormones. Yes. And we're all fighting
against the hormones.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Because there are times when it's not there, which means it's not us. We are always there.
Nicola.
We're constantly present. We're the constant. And if something can disappear, it means it doesn't have to be there all of the time, and it's not part of you. It's just something that's happening to you. And that mental change is such a big thing, because it stopped me feeling so guilty. And I'd often, sometimes if I was having bad PMT, would not go to social events or whatever, because I just wouldn't feel like I wanted to bring that into the arena. But people still want you there, and you can just tell someone how you're feeling. And again, as long as you've got like an ally in the fight against it, whatever it is.
I love that.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it.
Oh, I feel like that's actually a lovely way to round off the podcast, Nicola, isn't it, Kate? That sort of feels like a nice...
Nicola, it's so lovely talking to you.
And you too. Oh my God.
I feel totally inspired now.
I just waffle on. I'm going to... Do you know what? Afterwards, I'll be like, what the hell did I talk about for an hour?
But you talked about an awful lot, Nicola, that's going to help a lot of people, I think. So thank you so much for coming on, Dear Hormones. Honestly, our first major celebrity guest.
You're making them sick.
Nicola, thank you so very much for coming on our podcast. It's just been amazing talking to you.
That is a pleasure. Do you know what? I know I've met Jenny before, but I've only met you once, Kate. But doesn't it feel like you've known each other forever when you talk about things like this? I think it's amazing.
I feel like I've known you forever. I feel like, we can be friends, Nicola.
And that's the magic of a good podcast.
Oh, thank you very much. You're absolutely right there, Nicola. I think the more we as women talk about all these things, you do feel like you're part of a gang, you're part of a group, and together we can defeat it. So
definitely.
Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, Kate, isn't she amazing? I feel like I'm a massive fangirl. I'm fangirling after Nicola Thorp.
Yeah, and I want to start watching Coronation Street. She's not in it anymore, is she? But
no, she's not. But you should go back to some old episodes. Yeah, watch the old episodes of her. I'm so grateful for her to come on our podcast, because we do say this quite a lot. This is a pretty small podcast, guys. The fact that Nicola has actually wanted to come on our podcast and talk about all this stuff and has listened to our podcast, it's quite exciting for a couple of girls like us, isn't it?
So exciting. And didn't she just called it, because we said our little podcast, and she called it our big podcast. Thank you, Nicola.
Yeah, even when she's lying, she's lovely. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that, and we'll be back with more letters in our next episode. So thanks very much, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
That was Dear Hormones with Jenny Smith and Kate Bauss. If you've got a story to share, email the girls at dearhormones@yahoo.com, or they're @dearhormones on Instagram. Until next time.